What's going on, everybody? Bobby Fi here, flying solo as Sheets is at the Yankees-Mets game. Hopefully that game plays for Sheets' sake and for our sake because we hate to have games canceled and we have some serious weather concerns in a few games. So that's going to be a little bit annoying because it's a small slate as it is, and we're going to have to try and figure out what we're going to do about these potential weather spots. It looks like Philly is a little more dangerous than it was earlier in the day. It looks like the Yankees game is still a little dangerous as well, which just has me a little worried because I think, like Philadelphia, I thought was going to be much more chalky than they're currently projected. I thought they would have been by far and away the number one stack. Maybe people aren't doing it because it's a bullpen game. I thought they'd be for everybody else. They're not necessarily my number one stack. I like Minnesota the best, especially the Miranda-Buxton combination. I like the Dodgers. I think that people are going to play. There's a little too much talk about them, and on a big slate, would be happy passing on this against the lefty. But the fact is, Mookie, Will Smith, and Trey Turner are just. I just think they're really strong plays. I like them again more as a mini stack. It's hard for me to find stacks that I'm really crazy about today, and I'm also might do some weird stuff with my pitching. But the Dodgers, I think I have it ranked right now. Let me just double check. I have it. I do like the Phillies if they're going to be lower owned. I'm a little worried about the weather. I like the mini Cincinnati stacks, but I prefer Minnesota above the other ones, and I like the Dodgers, especially even if you just are playing two of them. They're really expensive, but I really like the chance for bets. And the Dodgers have had a pretty long history against Lauer, and they've been really good against him. He's walked, about 1 out of every 3 batters, and he's also given up 10 home runs and 140 plate appearances. There's a lot to have some like for the Dodgers here. But other than that, I mostly am looking at mini stacks. I think that St. Louis is the obvious one, but you've got a reverse splits lefty, which kind of takes me a little bit less excited for them. And then also the weather in Chicago is not ideal for hitting by any means. So a little bit lower on that one. There's just a lot of spots like that today. I could see an argument for a Tampa stack, but I worry about the pinch hit risk. So it's really going to come down to what you want to go with. I do like the Braves a little bit, but I think that Contreras, I still believe he's talented. And I actually think if I was playing a million lineups, he'd be one of those other guys I would be including in my mix because I could see him getting, having a 5-6 innings, 7 strikeout type of a game. And he's cheap enough to where that works. And I'm bringing him up because I'm considering using Aller as an SP2, which is a really weird play. But Miami, I just think you bet against the teams that, strike out. There's some strikeouts in that lineup. They're a weak lineup to begin with. And Aller, throughout his last 2 years in the minors, was better than a strikeout per inning guy. While it hasn't translated into the majors, this isn't Texas, Houston, San Francisco, or he's look at who he's faced so far. He's basically hasn't faced a team this bad yet. So I kind of am open to giving him a chance tonight. And it feels kind of gross, but the slate feels kind of gross to me as well. So that's what I'm doing a little bit. I do think that the Mets as one-offs are Alonso or Lindor, just mini stacks again. But I think I'd rather play the Dodgers in the same price ranges that I would the Mets personally. That's where I'm at. The Scherzer thing is, again, if the weather was all perfect and all good, I do think that you'd want to be playing a good bit of Scherzer. The fact that he's not going to be the highest owned pitcher, I know he's expensive, but he's pretty automatic for a good start. And then the Yankees, we've seen them just be horrible lately. I'm going to read you guys the Yankees last lines of games, and obviously they're not nearly against pitchers nearly as good as Scherzer. 4 runs, 2 runs, 0 runs, 2 runs, 8 runs, 1 run, 0, 0, 3, 2, 3, 3. They are really struggling. That's going back for a few weeks now without having 1 game of 8 runs and no other game above 4. That's enough of a reason to definitely prioritize Scherzer if you want. And you have some value you could use out there. You have the catcher for Oakland, I think is reasonable value. You've got the outfielders for Cincinnati, which I think are reasonable value. You've got Fraley, obviously. Pujols always a platoon risk, but he's 2K. JJ Bleday, if you're not playing Aller, even though which you're probably not, because I'm not recommend. I don't want to go out on crazy and recommend Aller. I just have a feeling I'm going to end up using him tonight because I want to play the Dodgers in those stacks. So Springs is my number one, the guy I know I'll have the most exposure to at pitcher. Other than that, it's going to be a mix of Scherzer, Urias, Sonny Gray, Cabrera. I'm actually using a lot of pitchers, and potentially Aller. And if you're not playing Minnesota, Reagans is going to have a big game at some point. I don't know when that's going to be. Kid's really talented. I can't find the strike zone right now. That's, if that goes away, if he can improve a little bit on his control, I do think that's an interesting spot to try to get different, is to get different with your pitching. At the same time, like I said, I don't love a ton of the hitters today. And for what it's worth, you do have the extreme hitters umpire and Marquez I mean, it's weird because Marquez is an extreme hitters umpire, but he's just like a horrible umpire, like in my opinion. I think he's so bad. It's really the only extreme umpire on the slate, which maybe leads a little bit more to playing some of the Mets. But yeah, it's kind of a gross slate. So I'm not playing a ton of lineups today. Rich B saying the New York weather is pretty good. I'm not going to speculate on my interpretation, and I don't think any of us are weather people. So, Cheech is on his way to the game right now. I'll let Roth decide what I want to tell me what to do with that one, because that is a weird situation. And then we've got, the Cincinnati-Philadelphia game just worries me a little bit. We know Philly and Washington have both been a little flaky when it comes to canceling games in the past. I see that, Cabrera, I think, I like what Goldie's saying here in chat. I do think Cabrera has the talent to really potentially have a monster outing. He's got incredible strikeout stuff. And he's, this is the softest matchup he's faced. And he's actually been, outside of the one start against Houston, just like really, really good. And he and Gray I have rated very similarly today. And given the ownership going more towards Gray, I think that's a really, really strong play to take a shot with Cabrera. You can make the same argument for Jordan Montgomery. Everybody in that range. It's just, that's how I feel. I have a lot of medium guys on this slate. I don't feel in love with a lot of these options, which may lead me back to Urias and Springs, just because I feel like they're safe and have enough upside to get it done tonight. And I don't know, outside of Scherzer, who else is going to win it for you pitching wise. Everybody else, I feel like you're asking, Cabrera, while he does offer savings off of Urias, he's it feels weird to make that play at only $1,200 difference. So I don't know. I'm just sort of struggling with that. Yeah, the Storms are supposed to move in just for what it's worth in Yankee Stadium in a little bit. But we'll see. It's a very tough one. It just depends on where those Storms end up going, whether it gets over the stadium or not. Twins. Clay Davis says Twins. I like the Twins. You have my full consent on that one. Will be some popularity with the Twins today. I'm going to take a quick look at their ownership projections. I think that you're going to see pretty high ownership on both Buxton, Correa, who I'll skip. I'll just find the way to get up to Trey Turner. Miranda and Buxton are the two top plays in that game, in my opinion. I really like both of them quite a bit. If you're not going to play some of these other fishier plays that we talked about pitching wise, like Aller and Reagan's, obviously the other side, which we just talked about Minnesota, but I think that you could make an argument also for playing some Miami against Aller at what I think is going to be like zero ownership outside of maybe Brian Anderson, because he's 2,300 batting fifth. But you can always play Aguiar. It's not a fun lineup to look at. Jacob Stallings is 2K. JJ Bleday is probably the best play for them at 2K, but you've got other outfielder options at 2K as well. Lauer, I think there's an interesting argument to be made there. I know he had a good outing last time against the Dodgers. I think that when you face these guys 2 times in a row, I think it actually is a huge boost, especially to a good offense. So I will give the Dodgers a boost in that one. But I don't think that I'm definitely not going to be playing any Lauer personally. And but I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world if you wanted to do it. I do like the lineup the Dodgers released today for what it's worth. I like when Lux is in there, even against lefty. I think Bellinger is heating up a little bit. I like Chris Taylor down at the bottom at 3,500 at batting seventh. I do think that they can get to Lauer, especially if you look at the history. They do have pretty decent history against Lauer, as I mentioned, on a pretty decent volume considering what we get in current modern day baseball because he used to pitch for the Padres. The Blade thing is I think that's a really interesting play. And again, you don't obviously need to use Aller, but the outfielders that I'm definitely most interested in and that are cheap are probably JJ Bleday and Jake Fraley, who I think is going to be much more popular than people are currently projecting him to be. He's been really good. You get some stolen base upside against Syndergaard. Both he and Senzel have that. Syndergaard, we know he's the easiest guy to steal on in recent baseball history, and I don't see why we wouldn't take a shot with a couple guys who could maybe steal some bases against him. He also will give up some hard contact, so you have the power out option as well. I would have liked playing better on FanDuel tonight. I have a lot of crossover players at the same position that I like, so but unfortunately the FanDuel tournament sucked, so I'm just skipping it. It's just sort of been the case for Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays on FanDuel. They all kind of suck. I'm going to get out of here in about 9 minutes, but I would love for any other questions or thoughts. I think that Goldie's putting a lot of interesting stuff out there right now, and I think that's worth considering. But pop in what you're doing, what your thoughts are, because I feel still like I'm not entirely decided on what I'm doing. I think that I do like the Turner Betts Will Smith combination for the Dodgers, especially Turner and Betts. I like the Miranda Buxton for Minnesota, and then I think you have a bunch of value options you can play to fill out stacks, or, Chris Taylor being the lowest one for the Dodgers. For Minnesota, you've got Gordon in the outfield at 2K, a lefty, which means he's not probably getting pinch hit for. So that's what I'm probably going to end up doing. And I will not probably be 5-man stacking tonight. I think it's going to be more of a 4-2-2, 4-3-1, something like along those lines, potentially even a 3-3-2 in my big one. 15%, that makes a lot more sense, Goldie, than what I was looking at. So I think 15% is actually very, very reasonable, estimate on what Fraley will be owned, which is pretty high. I think that I think that St. Louis is totally legitimate. I went through the reasons why it's not good hitting weather in Chicago. Smiley is a reverse splits pitcher, so he actually gives up more power and everything to lefties than he does to righties. But we've seen over and over again this St. Louis team just crush left-handed pitching. So I'm totally okay with St. Louis. I personally am not fully stacking them anywhere, but I do have some Arenado Goldie. I have some Arenado Goldschmidt and Tyler O'Neill 3-man stacks a couple places. And you could throw in the cheap Molina at catcher, although I think there's better 2K catchers than Molina on this slate. Kind of like this Langoliers guy for batting 5th for Oakland. He's been pretty good so far, so I wouldn't mind doing that. All right, let's see something really quick. I want to take a quick look at Arias because I love Arias as a real-life player. I would love to have him on my team. I think he's a really, really good hitter, but he just doesn't have any power, and it's always hard for me to justify the guys without power who are not cheap. He's not expensive. He's not crazy, but I think if you're using a guy like Arias, you probably have to be having at least a 4-man stack of Minnesota. And for what it's worth, I'm just going to take a quick look at Arias' numbers in the season versus lefties. He's had 2 home runs and 99 at bats. That's about his normal home run rate. Plenty of singles. That's what you're going to get with Arias. So I would keep him for bigger stacks only. Yeah, Grissom, but we also have worries about that Atlanta game. Grissom is my number one second baseman. Maybe I should have led with that, but he's we have to see what happens with that game. He's been great. These Braves just keep churning out these young studs. Michael Harris, Vaughn Grissom. They really did a good job of just they keep doing a really good job of tooling and retooling and changing the names may change on the jerseys, but they just keep hitting. Muncy is not a guy who I'm trying to go out of my way to get, but he's fine in the Dodger stack. I wouldn't be playing Muncy as a one-off, but I do think he's completely legitimate in a Dodger stack, and actually has decent power numbers against lefties for his career. So that's where I'm at for that one. I just mentioned the Grissom one. Let's see what else we got. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot else going on in here. It's kind of a weird Monday slate, especially with the 3 weather games. I hate that this time of year. I really want to just be able to know who's good to go and who's not. especially with the fact that we have to worry about Yankees with a delay potentially in the mid innings, which would kill my Scherzer love at 11-3. So let's see what we get with that. We do, like I said, I do like the lineup the Dodgers laid out tonight. I think that you could use Muncy as a part of that if you want that stack. I think that makes sense. I wouldn't be using him as a one-off, but yeah. And another thing you could do is if we do get the word that the Yankee game is okay, I think that getting low ownership on one-offs against Scherzer if you're not using him and if you're paying down a pitcher, Aaron Judge certainly can hit home runs. So I wouldn't mind taking a one-off of Aaron Judge because Scherzer will give up some power. Favorite center for DK? I don't know what that means. We're not in basketball season right now, so I'm going to guess you mean catcher. Favorite spend up is Will Smith. Spend down is probably Langoliers. And then Darno would be the other spendish down, the 3K guy. And then in the middle, it would be either Murphy or Jonah Heim for me. So hopefully that helps a little bit. And let's see what else we got. No problem, man. I wish it was an NBA slate. I'm not really loving this baseball slate, although I've been struggling and I've actually liked a lot of the slates. So maybe this is how I break out of it. Maybe that's what we do. Yeah, wouldn't that be funny though? What do you think of the center? Like, that's a question. I've done DFS content for like 7 years now, 6 years, I guess it is. Like, I don't think anybody's ever asked me about a center in football before, but that would be kind of funny to do like a totally different type of show and like just talk about the offensive and defensive lines and not talk at all about the skill players. If there was a cool way of tracking them in an easy fantasy way, I think that would be a really fun game to play for those of us who are nerds and love fantasy sports. Anyway, I'm digressing because it looks like the questions are drying up, and I am going to go and check the Roth report because I do trust him. And then we have our man on the field sheets. If there's anything there that I hear from him, I will post it in Discord, and I'll be there throughout the night. Take a look at Rhodey's article. Take a look at everything out there, and let's make some money tonight, guys. As Rhodey says, let's get it. Please like the show before you get out of here. We always appreciate that. And hopefully we see you guys at the top of the leaderboards. The NFL's coming soon. Let's make some money and have a huge bankroll going in before and then, by the end of the year, hopefully somebody can win the million for the True DFS team because we're going to have the tournaments every week now with the NFL. And there's still, I believe, one more baseball tournament that's $1 million for first, which would be really fun. I do like the Pirates outfielders as well. Yeah, again, I'm just concerned about that game a little bit, but I do like my initial thing is, so I've got some 3-man stacks from the Pirates. I've got some 3-man stacks from Cincinnati. I've got some 3-man stacks and 5-man stacks from Minnesota. And I've got some 3 and 5-man stacks, 3 and 4-man stacks, for the Dodgers. Then, like I said, mostly just a couple of 3 and 4-man stacks for St. Louis. But I like the Pirates a little bit. Yeah, I think it's just it feels very spread out tonight. So I think you factor ownership in more on a slate like this than you would ordinarily because I don't see anyone standing out as being significantly so much better than anybody else. Remember for Atlanta too, they're a much, much, much better hitting team at home. And this is one of the worst hitters parks in baseball that they're going into. Anyway, good luck to everybody. Hope you guys crush it tonight. Let's see some screenshots. We'll be in Discord all night and let's make some money. Good luck, everybody.